Well, the world is a dumpster fire. Nothing here makes sense. And you vacillate between crippling fear and constant self-defense. And nothing's right and nothing's good. And you're paralyzed with grief. Don't kill yourself, just have a cup of coffee.
Welcome to Coffee Over Suicide, the dramedy podcast about mental illness and choosing life over death one cup of coffee at a time. I'm your host, Chris Parker Howard. And I want to talk a little bit about something that ties in with today's episode today. I want to talk about perspective. It's not something that I feel like people really need when it comes to the situations that they're in, or pain, or discomfort, or sadness, or depression. Those things are really not quantifiable. You know what I mean? You got what you got, and you are where you are, and you deal with it how you're going to deal with it. And it's all a very personal experience. So you can't really say that any one person's experience is any more difficult than another person's experience. Now, that's something that I have always believed all the way to my core, until I talked to today's guest, Floyd Jordan. Now, Floyd has been through more in his lifetime than a lot of people go through in 2 or 3 lifetimes. And he's come out the other side a positive force for change. A real testament to the idea that you can literally go through hell and come out the other side and choose to be better. You can either let something define you and drag you down and tell you all of the negative things that you think about the world are true, and you can point at all of that and say, see, I told you nothing good ever happens. I told you I'm not lucky. I told you that I'm cursed. None of that's true. None of it's true. It's all what you do with the circumstances that you're given. And you're going to fall down and make mistakes and do dumb things. And the important thing is to learn from it, brush yourself off, own up to it, and just go, all right, well, let's move forward. Let's see if we can do better now. That's absolutely it. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. We're going to get into the episode. But first, really quick, I just wanted to thank everybody who came out to the Mutiny Information Cafe in Denver last night for the storytelling show Queen City Companion, run by the amazingly talented Allison Rose. She was actually a guest on this show, and you should do yourself a favor and go listen to that episode. But now, you should listen to this episode. And I give you Floyd Jordan. So right out of the gate, how I seem to start all of these is, hi, how are you doing?
I am well. I've got you on the phone. I'm breathing. Life is good.
Oh, that's not nothing. I mean, there's a lot of ways that could go. I mean, the alternative is certainly less appealing.
Oh, you mean to not be walking and breathing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I don't say that facetiously. Like, I say that. So look, I work with people. Again, I've been depressed, been 400 pounds, been addicted. My son's mother's in a call. Like I've lived that, life. And one of the things, now, and again, I'm a success coach, which is kind of like a life coach, but I'm a little more hard ass, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is I believe that gratitude is a superpower. And, so like, sometimes, I believe in just taking time and literally, with meditation and different things, being grateful for like silly things, like, but not so, breathing is a bigger one, but the fact that we can even like speak Chris, that's amazing. The fact that we have an ability, both of us, to move our mouth and a brain that can comprehend it is just a beautiful thing that I'm grateful for.
But I mean, that's a process to get to that level of the mountain, you know, when you're looking at gratitude. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things. Let's go back a little ways. Let's talk about your journey toward who you are now and where you are now. Where did you grow up?
Ohio, the state of Ohio, and
nice.
It's Dayton. Yeah, so you're in Michigan, right, I think?
I was, yeah. I'm in Denver, Colorado now.
You say you cut out there. You said you live where?
Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm from Michigan. I actually spent quite a lot of time in Dayton, Ohio.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm familiar. Spent a lot of time in Ohio. The trolley stop is a favorite. And obviously, I mean, Cincinnati, Skyline Chili, you can't beat it.
Yeah, you're a Skyline Chili. I'm not going to lie, I don't like the Skyline Chili. Maybe that's why I moved to California, though. I don't know.
But I mean, that's because you were from there.
Yes.
You know, as a tourist, it was just bananas enough that it really stuck home for me. I mean, who would have thought to put cinnamon and chocolate and hot dogs and chili and put it over spaghetti with oyster crackers?
That is why I don't even think I realized that was in there until you just told me. But it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
So, what was it like growing up in Dayton? I mean, I know what it's like now. It's an interesting city. It's struggling in a lot of ways, but that also means there's a pretty thriving art scene. So it is kind of that dichotomy of heartbreaking and beautiful. When was the last time you were back?
Just a couple of months ago. I mean, my son and I moved to California about a little over a year ago.
Oh, okay. So you're fresh.
Yeah, totally. Moved to San Diego. So
nice.
About a little over a year ago.
San Diego is beautiful too.
It is very beautiful.
So what was Dayton like when you were a kid? What kind of kid were you?
Oh man, I mean, how do I give the rundown? Okay, so my mom is a hard, I guess to understand that, I'm not going to go too much into this, but, kind of understand who you are. You got to kind of know a little bit about where you come from.
Yeah.
Okay. And, my mother is one of, I believe, 7 kids. All right. And when we talk about mental health, I mean, that's it's a foundational thing to me because, her mother, my mom was beaten more than she was ever hugged by her mother. To this day, which I didn't really realize until later how much, what this meant, but, she never refers to her as mom. She says Ruby. That's her mom's name. She doesn't call her mom. She never has called her mom. I never met this woman. But again, so there was a lot of mental health there. And, she, unfortunately, my grandmother, I think she was kind of thrust into motherhood. She was raped at a young age, and that was a time before any abortions or anything like that. So she was kind of forced to have this kid.
Yeah. And
then it set her down a path of having, 6, 7 more kids. And I think that was a lot probably for her. And so she would have some kids. I mean, I'm not talking little beatings. I'm talking beating people with knives, the side of a butcher knife, or beating people with bed slats, or, having to send kids to the hospital because it got so bad. I mean, my mother had to spend, I think she missed school for a couple of weeks, because of the beatings. And I guess the reason that's important to me, without, going into her story,
sure,
is just that, so then you kind of fast forward a little bit. And so that's kind of the experience that my mother's been through. And, I think some people, and I don't say this, I love my mom, we have a great relationship. I think that when people have kids, sometimes they have kids because they want to love a child. And then sometimes I think they have a kid because they want to feel loved.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And yeah, so that was the latter. And the reason that's important is so my My dad was born in 1936. He has since passed away. But, so he was older when I was like 50 something when I was born. And he did not want to have any kids, right?
Yeah.
But my mom just decided to fucking, lie and be like, yeah, I'm still taking birth control. And she was not taking birth control. And the reason I'm grateful for that, and it's foundational to who I am, is because, there's no father on my birth certificate. My dad wasn't around, for, most of my childhood. And I would get mad at him, and I had a lot of hate, for that. But again, you got to see all sides of it. I mean, he wasn't expecting to have a kid. He kind of got a little bit of duped into it. I mean, it's still his responsibility. You stick your penis in something, that's kind of you signed the contract at that point.
Yeah.
I believe. Tell my son that. So that's kind of foundation of who I am. And if you ask where, I grew up, it was in a predominantly black neighborhood.
Yeah.
People say urban, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was that. And when I was young, I remember like some of my first memories are of, we lived in I guess just a ghetto apartment complex is the simplest way to put it, like a little mini project kind of thing. And it wasn't, I remember my mom telling me it's not safe to go outside. We couldn't go outside and play. And I would hear, screams of just domestic violence, like women just getting beaten, particularly from one of my friends, his father. And so, yeah, I mean, that was kind of like foundational to my upbringing. And it's always left me with a curiosity of like, how can some people manage things healthily and others be crushed by them?
Yeah. But how did you handle all that? Because that's, I can definitely see where that would basically put a fork in your road, where you've got to choose whether or not you're going to, rise up and be tougher, or if you're going to make yourself invisible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that it was, now I can say it, but it was a lot of, struggle. I mean, so from a young age, obviously seeing this also, again, my aunts, my whole family struggled with mental health. Like, so my uncles a lot of them were alcoholics, all the ones that I really knew. Yeah. My aunt was addicted to drugs, and she was a prostitute, and she would, burn my Ghostbuster bed sheets because she'd be, lay on my bed, or I remember at a young age, having to be like, hey, I don't want to kiss you because your lips are crusty, and just different things. And again, it gives me now I have a understanding and a respect for like an appreciation, you could say, for that whole situation. You know what I mean? The whole that gets you there, the whole infrastructure of drugs and all the kinds of things, society, culture. But at the moment when I was going through it, it was incredibly hard. I mean, I was diagnosed with like a nervous breakdown in, I think, the second or third grade. Yeah. And yeah, I've been depressed. I mean, I'm 31 now, but I've been depressed most of my life, and anxious, anxiety, crushed by it. I mean, I could put on a good outside, and that's what I work with people now. And that's why I believe you have to share it to keep it. Cause I mean, for most of my life, I thought everyone was just sucking it up. I thought you just faked it. You faked the smile and you moved on. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of how, but again, there's little things too that I'm grateful for, like being in that. I mean, my mom was obviously living in this too. Some of my earliest memories, of those places, are of, my mom being really depressed, really sad. And then I learned that I could do little silly things and I could make her laugh. Yeah. It's true, put my underwear on my head or just find little jokes or whatever it was. And so that kind of connected me, to comedy in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? How to like be funny, how to help someone, not be as depressed, put a smile on her face. And that was just foundational, man, to my life. So that's a little bit of it, how I took it, but it took years to get here. Yeah.
I mean, as it does, man, there are so many things in what you're saying there that definitely resonate with me and make a lot of sense to me. And being able to start using comedy as a way to lessen a rough situation is something that really speaks to me. I'm so familiar with that. Were you ever the kid who could talk his way out of stuff because of those experiences?
I mean, yeah, like I think I was age 15 when I sat in the back of a cop car with a gun in my pants because I just did. That's a long story, but yeah. So obviously I could, well, I mean, again, you get, that's kind of the privilege. Sometimes like it's like there's two sides to everything. I mean, if you have a privileged child and they live, they're a millionaire's kid and they don't have to struggle, right? They don't get that struggle.
Yeah.
Then a lot of times they don't get that practice handling pressure.
Right.
And I think that's a problem in some ways because then, you have that. So yeah, it's how you use it. But yeah, I definitely got better at, handling pressure. I mean, whether it be with police or it was just because it was a common thing. It was just kind of, I was used to it.
But what were you doing with a gun in the back of a cop car? How did we get there?
Oh man, there's so much. I'll have to tell you about when I accidentally joined the KKK in second grade because that's kind of a thing. I was at third grade. Anyway, that was the nervous breakdown event. But let me digress.
We are already off the rails.
We are, man.
You've got, the fact that you're just the 10 things that you've said in passing here, and the fact that you're able to string a sentence together as a coherent human being with empathy and an understanding of all of this stuff, that in and of itself is a miracle. Gratitude is a superpower, man. I'm a grateful fuck. You've got to recognize that. Because it does sound kind of fucking insane. Yeah, it is insane. Yeah, but you know what? The pendulum swings. I completely understand how you, if you cultivate the right things, you can swing out the other side of this being very grateful. But that takes a level of self-awareness. So, man, I don't even know which thread to follow at this point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, if you want, I can tell you about the gun stuff. We can do it. Yeah. Let's tell me about that. I'm kind of curious, like how you land there. Yeah, no, it's okay. So long and short is, and we can go back and touch on this, but so I accidentally joined the KKK in like second, third grade. And the reason I have trouble remembering is because that's when I was diagnosed with a nervous breakdown and it can blur some things for you, but it's on record. So that happens. We're going to a predominantly, black school, and it's an impoverished school, right? Typical impoverished school. Yeah. Well, this starts happening. I'm getting jumped in bathrooms. It's getting really bad. I'm having a nervous breakdown. My mother lies and gets me out of that school district into a more affluent school district, right? A white, you could say, school district. Yeah. And the reason that's important, so then again, I kind of go there, and then that was in like third grade, right? Maybe the end of the third grade year. And then, so I do that. And the reason I mention that is because then I come here and there's always this little insecurity. I mean, I don't know if, I think I've heard even like really rich people and like successful people talk about it. It's like if you've ever been poor, like if you've ever, like I was lucky enough to be old enough, I waited in welfare lines with my mother to get food stamps. Yeah. Like that was still a thing. And you feel that insecurity a lot of times, if you don't process it. So flash forward, I'm an insecure fucker and I have some, I'm funny and I can talk, right? So, and I'm trying to impress people. And long story short is I end up hanging out with just kind of the wrong person, you could say. And I kind of hung my hat on, I wanted to look cool. I didn't really have any other talents. I could sell stuff. So I start selling weed and I sell weed. And then the reason this is important with the gun is I end up, someone asks me or someone offers
like a really good deal on Xanax. Yep. And so like I'm 15 and I just see, damn, I can make a bunch of money. And I got them really cheap. I mean, I think I had like 50 of these things. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was selling them. But so I get with my friend and he's like, hey, yeah, we should take some. And I had never taken any. And I wanted to look cool too. And he said something like let's chew some or whatever. Yeah. And I think he meant swallow it. Well, I fucking chewed it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I chewed 8 Xanax.
Oh
okay, so I probably should have died. Yeah, I probably should have died. And so long story short of that is, so I do this ignorant thing, unthinkingly, and then I don't remember much, but I'm pretty positive I took my friend's car. I wasn't even driving. I don't remember it. All I remember is I remember us, we kind of shook. I remember being with a different friend, which was like the not good influence guy. I remember being with him and we were like shaking a vending machine to get money out of it. And then my very next memory is of like us being pulled over and I see the cop lights flashing and I see the cop walking from the back of our car towards the front. And my friend, or I say that very loosely, all right?
Right.
But yeah, right. And so his gun, I didn't fuck with guns. His gun is in the middle of the console. And I was good at magic tricks and had 8 Xanax. So I just kind of said, fuck it. And I just grabbed it and put it in my pants. And then so the cop calls us out. And then he goes to, and I also had cigarette. And again, my mind wasn't really clear, but it kind of snapped me a little bit. So I get out of the car and he's patting me down the sides, like from the armpits down.
Yeah.
And the gun is in my pants, it's in my waist, like near my belly button. So he's patting me down sideways first. And I had cigarettes, but when I pulled my hands out of my pockets, I palmed them. Are you familiar? Like,
yeah.
Like a magicians do. Okay. So I palm them and I stick my hands out so he doesn't find the cigarettes. Because at this moment, I almost forgot the gun was there. Like, I was just trying to hide the cigarettes. I wasn't supposed to have cigarettes. I was 15.
Yeah.
and so he's patting me down that way. And then all of a sudden, so he finishes that, and then he starts patting me down, starting at the chest. And he gets down to, like, my stomach, like right above the gun. And I pull out the cigarettes, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have these, right?
Yeah.
And then so he starts giving me this big lecture of, like, you shouldn't smoke. I'm calling your mother. He tells me to get in the back of the cop car. And so he calls my mom. And the whole time I'm sitting in the back of the cop car with this gun in my pants. And
but you just ate Xanax, so you must be very calm.
I am, yeah, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that helped. I don't know. Right? Maybe it helped. Again, there is no good and bad. So maybe I wouldn't put it in my pants, but then also maybe I got away with it. So yeah, man, I did that, and I remember my mom picked me up, and it was like 3 a.m, and she wasn't happy. And I asked her, and and I had done some, mischievous things, but so I asked her, I'm like, hey, Mom, can we go to a bridge? Because I pull out this gun. I'm like, I need to throw this thing off of this fucking bridge, right? I need to get rid of this thing. And so she just kind of flips out. She's like, no. So long story short is we go home. And then thankfully somehow someone had like ratted me out kind of thing that said that I had the gun. And then they called my mom and the cops were like typical kind of like bully threatening things. And long story short is I wake up because I passed out after eating 8 Xanax. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I wake up to 2 detectives like in my house, tapping me on the shoulder, like shaking my shoulder, telling me to wake up. And so I got caught, which was good because then that gave me a lot of that self-reflection because I had months. I mean, they could have charged me as an adult. I could have went to, big time. They could have fucked the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah.
And they really could have. So that was a good experience. Now that I'm past it, I wouldn't recommend it, though.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I would not tell.
So, yeah. Not to jump around too much, but honestly, I have to double back for a second. How do you accidentally join the KKK in the 2nd grade. How does a person do that?
Yeah, it's not, well, it's hard. Okay, so I don't know. You ever went to like a really poor school?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, especially in elementary school, it's almost like the thing to do is just to like beat the shit out of each other because like there's never any adult supervision kind of thing. So that obviously was dominant, you know. Now, and so when you have those situations, then it becomes like it's almost like self-preservation. You see it in prisons, you see it in anything.
Yeah,
you kind of have to.
It's a lot like prison. It's but you get to leave.
You get to leave.
It's like work release.
It's a work release. That's so true. That's so true. And they've since tore this school down. I wonder why. But man, I don't want to jump around. So anyway, so this is part of it, and basically, so you know, I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm kind of introverted. Like I've only learned. I think I learned this stuff because I learned sales because I knew at a young age, like I didn't want to be poor, and I just kind of like I like to sell. So, like when I was young, I was in kindergarten, I was selling like roly-polies as pets, and then when that dried up, I started selling grass for people to feed the roly-polies that I already sold them. It was just crazy. And so anyway, so we're doing this. I'm on my own, and I'm getting my ass kicked. And then this guy, like again, lessons to what is a friend, right? Don't trust people.
Right.
Learned this. It took a long time. But Daniel, good old Daniel, classic racist sounding name. But he offers for me to join this club, okay?
No.
And basically that we were going to beat the shit out of other people, because like that, but that's just what clubs did. I mean, there was like a bunch of clubs,
Yeah,
it wasn't like
I remember that.
Well, the kicker was that he said the KKK, right? But I didn't know what the hell the KKK was, all right? And so I'm in this club for about maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks, right? Maybe a month, in that range, okay? And meanwhile, so during this time, I'm committing all the hate crimes, not even knowing it, right? I'm thinking we're just kicking people's ass. I don't know we're kicking people's ass because they're black, all right? What the fuck is that? Until my mom,
that's who most people are.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking we're just beating. It just didn't seem like anything crazy to me. It was just kind of how things were done. Until my mom comes home one day. She didn't come. I don't know how. Again, she was working a lot too. She's a single mom, doing all this stuff by herself.
Yeah.
So sometimes they kind of go weeks without seeing you. You're like, oh shit, I'm just playing, but it's kind of true.
But parents, especially when you're coming up and your parents are broke and, you're living paycheck to paycheck like that, they're putting in extra hours. They're putting in weird hours because sometimes they're taking a job that keeps them out late instead of the classic, corporate paycheck and a 9 to 5. They're fucking exhausted. So, it happens. It absolutely happens that you're like, you just check in long enough to say, are you alive? Did you eat? I'll see you tomorrow.
That's it. So one of those times when she was checking in on me, she sees KKK written on one of my folders. And she goes ape shit, man. And she's like, and again, she wasn't abusive like her mom, but she was definitely like, she'd smack the shit out of my head. She'd smack me in the mouth. She wasn't like beating me with stuff. She was whatever. So she fucking flips out and she's smacking me. And this is incorrect, I know, but this is how she said it. She goes, do you know these are the people that killed Martin Luther King? And again, I loved Martin Luther King because I had like PBS. I watched a lot of PBS as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And so I love Martin Luther King. And I love the, I can't remember his name, the Reading Rainbow guy.
Oh, yeah.
The Reading Rainbow.
LeVar Burton.
LeVar Burton, thank you. Actually, no. So she starts saying, they hate people just because they're black. And so now I'm like, oh shit, man. I like Martin Luther King. I like the Reading Rainbow guy. What the fuck is this? And so she calms down. I tell her I don't know. I go into school the very next day and I say, fuck you, Daniel. I'm out of this shit. This is ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe I expected like a heroic thing, but it was not that, because now what had happened is I said, fuck you. So I wasn't going to join that club.
Right.
But all the black people didn't forget that, hey, you were in the KKK. And so then now every time I go to a bathroom, it's like the white kids were beating my ass because I was saying fuck the KKK. The black kids were kicking my ass because they were like, you were in the KKK. And Jerome didn't want to hear the fact that I didn't know. He just wanted the group of boys just kick my ass, a little bit. And so that kind of gives you a fucking, along with a couple other things, that'll give you a nervous breakdown.
Yeah,
right there,
I bet.
As a kid.
How old were you? Second
Man,
grade. It's like 8?
Second, third. I think I'm young for my grade, so I feel like I was
6.
I feel like I was 6, 7. Yeah, in that range. Yeah, I can look with my mom, but yeah, it was about 6, 7, and again, the teachers weren't very good, and then you got there's all these other stuff.
I remember that. I mean, there were a lot of times, especially in the rough schools. I mean, they're so used to having to maintain order and having to deal with so many things, and not to mention the fact that not even just saying that all of those teachers were probably good people, but because a lot of them weren't. I mean, some of those teachers were lemons that got kicked over to the bad schools because they were bad teachers. They just they were just as interested in watching the kids fight as teaching social studies. I mean, it just happened.
Probably.
I had a teacher really lose his shit one time, and we were lined up for swim class because there was a pool. And we were lined up for swim class, and the teacher saw that I'd forgot my suit. And he got so angry, and I swear to God, this guy was coked out of his mind. But he got so angry, he took off his Speedo in front of the whole class, and he threw it at me, and it hit me in the face.
What the fuck?
And then he stormed out butt naked, and I got in trouble.
What the hell is that? Yeah. That's just like, how the hell? What the fuck? Are you serious?
This guy's teaching children.
And he just goes full frontal nudity to prove a point?
Yeah.
God.
In front of a bunch of 6th graders,
And that's the thing, man. I think, to bring it back, like the mental health, at some point, that it's like me fucking chewing that Xanax. At some point, he thought it was a good idea to just rip his pants off. I'll show fucking Chris a lesson.
Exactly.
What the hell?
Yeah. So coming through all of this, I mean, you join and abruptly quit the KKK at the ripe old age of 7. You go on to Xanax and sleight of hand.
Yep. I liked magic too, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you find yourself where in your teenage years?
Oh, okay. Well, not long. Okay, so part of that story is, and this is something I don't remember, but I believe it. So my son's mother. Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently, we went to see her, and I don't remember this, but she's like, "Yeah, you came by. The person I was with, whatever." Yeah, I mean, if you could edit out the name, so don't put that in there, because I'm sure he's probably Daniel. Fuck him, he was around. Just maybe take them all out.
I'll be sure to I'll be sure to take I wrote down the time code here.
Okay, all right. If you leave Daniel in there, fuck it. Things happen, man. Don't recruit
we got
we
got no last names, so
that's true. That's true. All right. So you're good then. You're good. Okay. So to the point. So again, I guess where the life went from there. So I saw who would eventually be my son's mother, and so I go through this stuff, and I get, and this takes months, to go through the court proceedings and all kinds of money and different things. I got lucky, right? And again, maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's being white, maybe it's being pale. I don't know. I'll never know. I don't need to know, but I got lucky, and the judge basically was like, hey, you're going to do some community service. Here's some probation. And then you get to move on. So I do that, and I proceed to have a lot of unprotected sex with a woman. And I think
like
at this point, you do, right? I mean, my dad told me, God, parents, again, this is something I'll never forget. Parents, if you have a kid, they will ignore your advice, but follow your example, okay? And when my dad had the sex talk with me, he goes, now, son, let me tell you something. You need to wear a condom. There's a lot of venereal diseases. There's a lot of stuff going around. Wasn't there when I was a kid, okay? But to me, wearing a condom is kind of like taking a shower with your socks on. I just don't like it. Well, what the fuck? I didn't want to take a shower with my socks on. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
Dad, I don't want to do that. So I ended up getting a girl pregnant. I think I was 7. I was probably 16. I was well, he was born when I was 18. So, it must have been somewhere around there, like 17 is when I was 17 when I got her pregnant. So, I'm 15, 16 when this gun thing happens, and then it goes through months of like court proceedings and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm still selling weed like a motherfucker. Okay. Because then I actually started making more money because I wasn't smoking it. I was like trying to stay clean for the drug test.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy thing. So I'm selling weed, by pounds. It was a lot of weed. It probably wasn't the best idea. And so then eventually I get this girl pregnant that I don't really know all that well. And that's it, man. So then we break up. I break up with this girl, and then it kind of comes later. She talks to me. It's like and she's like, hey, I haven't had my period. And then, so they get a pregnancy test, and she finds out she's pregnant. And I kind of told her, I said, hey, if I didn't want to push her into a decision, because that's a lot, I didn't have to carry that thing around.
Yeah.
But I just told her, I said, hey, if you want to not have the baby, I'll help you do that. And if you do want to have it, I'll make sure, and I'll take care of you and the kid, and make it happen. And so she decided to have the kid, and now that fucking kid is 13 years old and stinky.
Yeah. Yeah, they get older, they start to smell like goats.
They do. They do smell like goats. He's a nice goat. But, so yeah, that was kind of like where it went. That was like the next maybe step from there.
So did you start to turn yourself around after the kid?
Oh yeah. Well, that was definitely, it was foundational. And again, it kind of, I'm grateful for the previous experience, because I got to see firsthand. Again, there is no father's name even on my birth certificate, right? And he didn't come really in my life, until I was like 13. So I kind of, my whole life, when all this stuff was happening, like I remember, like, when these people were, all these screams of this domestic violence and shit when I was a kid, I remember he would come over and he would give me a candy bar or something, and he would have sex with my mom, okay? Yeah. But then I would plead and beg him to stay, right? To like stay, and like, hey, there's these fucking mean people, and like stay here, you're big, strong, and protect us. And he didn't. But that's grateful for that, because it gave me an appreciation and really showed me how important it is to be that. So when that happened, I talked to her parents. Obviously, her parents did not want to let her move in with a drug dealer. You understand? That was not part of the plan. I'm 18. The only job I could get that I could actually provide for them was a job that was paid commission. I knew I couldn't do hourly. That was not going to be enough money working at McDonald's or anything like that. Right. So I get a job, and it was, I don't know if it was Rex TV, right? Rex TV and Appliance. It's an old store. And I don't know if you know, but so I sold, so I took that, and then for several years, I just started selling it. It took me about a couple of, maybe a month or two. And then by the time he was, I think before he was even a month old, I had gotten a place and paid for it all and done it all with like legal money. And then she was allowed to move in, and I was able to have my kid in like a non-smoking environment and a clean environment. That was important to me. So yeah, that kind of started. It woke me the fuck up, you could say.
Well, and people are going to learn things from their father one way or the other. You're going to learn what kind of father you want to be or what kind of father you don't want to be.
That is a fact.
I mean, you just pick things up from your parents, one way or the other. And, it's always one of those cases where you don't really have a choice. You're going to fuck some things up. But going in with the best intentions and, just generally trying to keep the well-being of the other person higher on your list than anything else, you probably won't fuck up that many things.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but for me, and then it kind of put me on the path I am now, because again, like, what is it? Like, how, like, I didn't have those things. Like, what is it to be a good person? Like, how do you do that? I didn't want my kid to grow up and be anxious and depressed and like, you know what I'm saying? So what is, and this is before even mental health. I didn't know what the hell, but I knew there was a healthy way to do it and a not healthy way to do it.
So where did you start getting your first set of tools from, so to speak?
I mean, life is a hell of a teacher, right? Yeah. So again, going through these experiences, I kind of understood the perils, like the real life, what really can happen. And so, yeah, man, I did that. And two, I mean, life, so we had him and for, over a year, I was working, I was working 12 hours a day, usually at least about 12 hours. Yeah. Maybe I would take a day or two off, and usually not. Because again, kids are expensive, stuff is expensive. Oh, yeah. And I was wrapped up in buying things, right? I thought that I could buy, I had an American Express. It was like, I was buying, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm a good dad. This is what a good dad's supposed to be. Right. But meanwhile, my son's mother was, she was being crushed by postpartum depression, so I would go to work all day. I'd come home, see the kid for an hour or whatever, an hour or two, play with him, put him to bed. And then I would stay up all night a lot of times, just, trying to help her, trying to get her motivated, trying to give her that, that energy so that way she could, give it to my son the following day while I was gone. Yeah. And that was big, man. That was maybe some of the, just like my mom, trying to cheer up my mom. But this is when, and thankfully I had Google and stuff at the time. So again, you start getting into a lot of, psychology and just, philosophy and how do you do it and how, all of that. And then I was actually practicing it like in real life, like it was, there.
But it had to occur to you to do that in the first place. I mean, it just seems like with the fact that there was all of that wiring in there up to that point about what you had learned, concrete about what the world is, how the world works, and what it is you need to do to get ahead. At a certain point, you had to be willing to turn your back on what you had already processed as truth. I mean, how do you do something like that?
Well, okay, so I went to school and I had a professor of psychology, and he was a clinical psychologist, but he had a lot of stuff he taught me, kind of like a mentor, really. And he told me, and this was way after all of this stuff had happened. Like my son's mother had already died and everything. And but he tells me, he goes, you can make big life changes. I can't remember how he said it, but basically a lot of times if you want to make a change, you can go incremental. Okay. And that works. And you can kind of augment yourself, or you are just completely fucking shattered to pieces. And then you get to start anew, Huh. And
that's absolutely what that true, was. But that's great advice. It's pretty rare in this world to get great advice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and a lot of it was just seeing, like, again, through the years of seeing mental health up close, seeing my mom be depressed, all me being depressed, seeing my, my aunts and uncles struggle with this stuff, and just kind of seeing it, like I knew I didn't want that. And obviously I had no clue, about, postpartum depression, and I learned it a lot. And I'll be honest with you, if I was the man, and I can't do this, right? There's no way to go back. But if I was this guy, I could have been a lot more help to my son's mother than I was as a 19-year-old clueless fuck.
Was it postpartum that got her?
No. So, again, I think, well, that's something. Maybe I didn't appreciate that too at the time. If someone's listening to this, or I don't know, and they say, and people, I don't know what words you want to call it, like male privilege, and I don't know. There's a spectrum. I think sometimes we go too far with it, and sometimes we don't acknowledge it enough.
Yeah.
But like for me, for instance, again, I have this American Express, and I'm buying her clothes, and I give her a credit card with my name on, so she's able to buy stuff. I'm buying everything for the kids. She doesn't have to work. And so to me, and then, so what I'm expecting is like, oh, well, why isn't the laundry done and the dishes clean and the fucking house always clean? And meanwhile, I'm not really appreciating her, and I'm not taking part in that labor.
Yeah.
And that's a quick way to just make some shit go south.
Well, but that's also
really
a thing that you've got to be able to figure out. Where do you get those kind of, let's say, correct sort of relationship values from? If you haven't really seen a lot of it growing up, as far as a model for I want to do this or I don't do this, the fact that your dad wasn't even around to fuck things up kind of says that you were basically kind of teaching yourself based on whatever else other information you could get from places. And it just seemed like that's the natural progression. This is how people do things, right? This is how this works. It's almost like, you're a young kid being handed the life of a 40-year-old and expected to figure it out as if you've had 40 years of experience.
Yeah, maybe there's people too. I know you know this, but there's people. Right now there's a boy, a girl being born in some, Asian, African nation. They're going to be just sex slaves or slave their whole life, you know? And so again, I'm really grateful. Like I'm lucky because on all those things, first is number one, I was crushed by all of them. Like I'm not lying when I say like I was deeply depressed most of my life. I'm literally just now not an anxious fuck. And that's why I try to help people. Like I thought that was just who I was. You know what I mean? And so I'm not. But again, when you're shattered, you get a chance to really evaluate the pieces. And so that's part of it. And then the other thing was that, and again, I'm grateful for this. I'm not saying this with malice now, but so the long and short of it is my mom, when she was like 17, maybe she was younger than that, but there was her uncle's wife, so her aunt, kind of took her in a little bit, and she would kind of help with the chores. She would help with the kids because this other woman had like 5 kids, right, or 4, and she would help with these kids. And so when I'm born, now we are never like we're always kind of looked down, like we're not on the same level. So like I don't want to. That's judgment. Let me give you an example. Like maybe like there was times where. I would be getting babysit by this other person, and she would buy ice cream for the other kids, right? Yeah. But not for me. Or like, they would do pictures at holidays, and like there would be a different picture. Like there would be a picture of them, and then there'd be a picture of like then they'd add us into the picture. And so now they were more a mentally, I would say, healthy family, right? They had better relationships. And so I kind of had that in my mind, like, like they weren't smacking their kids,
Yeah.
Like, I was getting my ass smacked around. You understand? Like, my mom was drinking herself. You know, there was not a lot of that with them. And they lived in the nicer neighborhoods, you know, so I get to visit it. So I was just lucky enough. Again, I am grateful for this, that I got to sit in that misery and taste it, like firsthand taste it.
Yeah.
But also have just enough to see like it's not all like this. You know, like there's something else. I didn't understand it, but I knew it was there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and there is value to be able to go through an experience like that in order to save someone else from going through an experience like that. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. I mean, you know, if you're able to have that kind of presence of mind, like the way you're talking about this right now and everything that you've been through, I mean, all of this is, I mean, it's painful to hear in a lot of ways, but I mean, it's incredibly thoughtful of you to be able to share these things and to be able to come forward and say, yeah, I went through some fucked up stuff and I came out the other side more of a complete human being. And these are the things that may or may not have helped. And I hope that these things may or may not help you, and you'll get an idea that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not just a train.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know. You have to share it to keep it.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And I was lucky, man. Like I said, I was lucky to have that experience and have all those, and to be, you know, crushed and shattered, and you know, and to be here, and you know, I didn't control. Like I said, I mean, heck, dude, you know, I didn't make my mom not take birth control. I didn't make my son's mother, you know, not get an abortion, or, you know, whatever. Like, I didn't do these. I didn't choose these things, but I'm grateful that these people did these things, you know, so right. I can be here.
But also you had some presence of mind at some point, and obviously not everybody can do these things perfectly. Otherwise, you're not a human being. I mean, you're a forklift. But to be able to recognize that you have a choice in how you react to things that are happening to you, because you don't have control over everything that happens to you, and you never will. Things are going to come out of nowhere, but then who are you going to show up as? And
That's
so with all of that, if you don't mind my asking, how old were you when your wife passed?
We weren't married. I was 20. Well, I'm 30. I think we're coming up on 2. Yeah, I was 29. Yeah, I was 29.
Oh man, so that I apologize. I mean, that seems like it would still be kind of fresh.
Well, I mean, and again, you talk about, man, that's a whole another part of it, but so with her situation, she's depressed, you know, she has postpartum depression. I'm trying to pick her up through this. Meanwhile, I'm depressed myself, and I'm, you know, just sucking it up, and I'm trying to go through it and be there for her. And then my father, long story short, gets in the hospital, right? I get a call from my mom saying, because eventually they got married, like when they were like, my mom was 50 or something. You know, so they're living together, and I'm at work, and also I went to another job now, right? So now I've upgraded. I got my own office. You know, I got my own office. I'm getting to travel for work. I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to Chicago. You know, my kid's like 4 now at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm still not, like, it doesn't feel right. Like I know I'm making this money. I know I'm doing this stuff, but like, you know, she's still unhappy, and like I don't know. I still don't feel like I have happiness, and I'm trying to figure this out for my kid, right? Because I know he's going to come into this world, or he's going to come up into where I am. And so I'm trying to figure this out. And the reason, I get a call from my mom. Hey, I need you to help me get your dad to the hospital, whatever, right? He can't move. I get there, I go there, I help get him to the hospital. And long story short is, he damn near dies the first time. He was a smoker. He had smoked cigarettes forever.
Yeah.
He goes to the hospital, and for months, I literally, I do not leave his side. It was 2-3 months. I got salaried for work, and my work performance was sucking. I went a month without sleeping, because I was just working and doing this, and I wasn't. And, so whatever, he's expected to die. And again, it was that thing where you said it great. And I tell my kid this, there's two things in this world, right? You can boil everything down into two things. There's things you can control and things you cannot control.
Yeah.
And no matter how you measure ounce, hour, dollar, whatever it is, there's way more things you cannot control. But so for me as a son, I just wanted to set the example, a high standard of how to be a great son, whether or not he was a great father. So I was the one there. I literally wiped his ass. You understand? That's not fun.
Yeah.
I stayed there. I fed him. We did all this stuff. I kind of helped him get motivated. He's able to get out, right? But while he was in there, then, so he gets out for a little bit, and then long story short, he goes back, and then I leave. He has to go back because he fucking kept smoking, right? He started smoking again. So he had to go back. And long story short is he's in the hospital. I leave for to take a shower or something. I think that's what it was, and to play video games. I was burnt out, right? I left to take a little break. My mom wasn't there, and I thought she was going to be, and that caused resentment later. But so he pulled out the feeding tube, and basically by the laws, of the rules of insurance, that meant he had to be cut off. There was nothing else we could do, and he had to go to hospice until he died. And so my dad dies, and then I'm fucking completely crushed. And also, while he's in there, I've developed a nice little addiction to a thing called Percocet, right? Doctor's prescription. And I was using that to kind of push through and not sleep and just keep going. And again, I gained a lot of weight. I was 400 pounds eventually. And so that happens. He passes away. And then I go, and so he passes away. That crushes me. And then I am literally also at this point, it had gotten real toxic living with her. I was things were happening. She was unhappy, and I don't blame her now. I understand it now.
Sure. I
just she would get drunk. She'd come home drunk or something, or she would just start punching me, just beating the shit out of me while I was sleeping. I would wake up to just getting punched in the face, and I didn't hit her back, and that was hard as hell. But I knew if I did, it was a wrap. I wasn't going to see my kid again.
Right.
And so. And again, you talk about crushing things. So then the first time my dad gets out, I asked him and my mother if we could move in with them, because she wasn't like that when other people were around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was trying just to do that. And that hurt, but my dad said no, right? So I just spent months wiping this guy's ass, being there every day. And then I asked him, I said, hey, I'm going to lose my mind if I don't get some help here, and he said no. Right. So that hurt. And then eventually he dies. And then eventually, so I move in, I'm able to move in after my dad dies too, to help my mom now, because now she's struggling. Right. So we go there, and I move in with myself, my son, and his mother. Right. Because she wasn't going to let him live anywhere without her. But I'm literally I had thought I was gonna kill her. I thought I was gonna kill her, and I thought I was gonna move to Mexico, or I wasn't even gonna kill her. I was gonna end up hitting her. I was not gonna be able to keep my cool. I was going to make a mistake, and I was just going to have to take my kid and go to Mexico and just hide, be like a farmer. You know what I mean? Like a cash worker. And so eventually my mom says, all right. And then we go there, and then that happens with my dad. And the reason I say all this is because at this point, so now I'm depressed as hell. Okay. Also, too, I have a job, I have a job that I was going to change to, and then that fell through, and then I was in this limbo period. And that's important because now, for the first time in like so long, I had a couple weeks where I just like spent with my son, like just me and him. You know, I was like doing the little things like feeding him and watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and whatever. And I had never done that really before. And again, with my dad dying, I started thinking, okay, Floyd, like what is it in his life that really matters? Like, let's say you can buy him everything, right? Is that going to help him not be depressed? Is it going to help him, you know, be successful in life? You know, and I don't know. I just didn't really think so. So that happens. And then again, and this is a long story here, but basically, fast forward a little bit. So I basically work from home, and I do some side hustles to where I can stay home with him, and then she goes to work, and then we kind of don't see each other that much, you know, because I kind of try to stay away from her. Again, we live in the same house, but we don't see each other that much.
Yeah, but you're finding a solution. It's just not the solution that you know you need.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still being crushed. I mean, at this point, I'm still gaining weight. I'm chewing Percocet like they're Skittles. I'm not actually chewing them, but I'm taking Percocet like they're Skittles. Yeah, and I don't know where to go. Like I don't understand how people manage this, and so this is happening, and I'm depressed as hell because again, I literally couldn't sleep because like I just felt that like I had nightmares of like just me leaving that day to play a video game and take a shower. And like, so I'm haunted by this, like, and I just can't sleep. I didn't get a haircut for over a year. Like it was just, I was like anxious. I remember going to get a haircut and just like breaking out and like sweats and anxiety because I couldn't even go in the place. I was like so ashamed of myself, you know? And again, if it wasn't for my kid, I would, you know, want to kill myself, to be honest. And so a couple of things happen there. So that happens. I start coaching my son's sports teams, and that really kind of helps me, you know, pushes me to get the hell up a little bit and start, you know, working this thing out. And then you fast forward, so it's my first year coaching my son's football team, and I'm the head coach of the team, right? And I didn't know it. Again, as kids, we smoked weed and we drank, but she had gotten addicted to heroin, right? Yeah. And I found this out from her brother. One day her brother knocks on the door. And so that was hard, man, because now, you know, a couple of things. So I have to apologize because she had taken money from the team, right? So I had to go apologize to the team. 2 is she had stole video games and an iPad and money from our son. And I had been riding my son's ass about, hey man, you got to be more responsible here. You're losing your stuff, right? Yeah. And so I had to look my son in the eye, and he's like, you know, 6, 7, and tell him, hey, your mom's addicted to drugs. I don't know when you're going to see her again. I'm sorry. She's the one that took your iPad, or, you know, the addiction and all that stuff. That's what took your iPad. And I don't know when you're going to see her again. And then so he's 6, 7. And then you fast forward through years of just failed connections. You know, she was in and out of jail. She was in and out of rehab. There was one time, you know, it was Easter. They were supposed to see each other, and she OD'd. She didn't die this time, but she overdosed like the day before they were supposed to see each other for the first time in years. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So then I had to figure. You're still trying to make this work.
Well, I'm being crushed. You're right. And not only that, it's not just make it work. Now it's a fucking point of, like, I have to figure out this mental health stuff because now my son is set up. And even now, this is what drives me. He's set up to be a statistic, man. Yeah. Like, born to teenage parents, his mom's dead. And then another big thing is I realized for the first time that that doctor's prescription I'm taking is actually the same damn thing pretty much as heroin, right? It's an opiate. Yes. You know? And so that's crushing, because now not only does he have one parent that's an addict, and I can't do nothing about that, but now I'm giving him two parents that are an addict, right?
Yeah.
And so that was hard. So that kind of pushed me, and eventually I quit taking the Percocet and stuff, and I'm able to, again, I haven't popped any of those pills in like, I don't know, 3-4 years or something.
Yeah.
But so that kind of put me on this health kick, and then I go back to school, and I'm starting to say, like, I got certified to be a chemical dependency counselor. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I can help people with addiction, because my thought was, I didn't think she was going to die. And even if she did, I had to like find what's the best ways to prepare him to healthily survive this thing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I go do that. And then, long story short, it actually was pretty sad. One day, it was maybe a week or two before she died. My son and I, literally, Chris, we passed her on the street. We walked right by her, and neither one of us recognized her.
Oh, Jesus.
His own mom, man, didn't even recognize. I mean, she had gained some weight and stuff, but it had just been so long, And then so she reaches out, she texts me, and and then we're set to meet. They're set to meet again for the first time this week, and I get a text early one morning, that from her dad that says she's dead. She's died of a drug overdose.
That's I can't even imagine what that's got to be like, to not only have to manage your own grief over years and years of something like that, and then to have to also try to help your child navigate that grief. I mean, that's got to be incredibly hard.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I will. I mean, I would have quit. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If it wasn't for him, I would have killed myself or something. I mean, it would have just been my guess. But it was hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, especially when she died, it was, and it's kind of one of those things where I started building some of these self-care principles. And again, I was really into psychology and Eastern, religion and philosophy and Western philosophy and all these things, trying to find the best, the simplest to survive because you're right. Chris, there is something coming for you, brother. And the thing is, they call it surprises for a fucking reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, I wasn't expecting to find out that she was addicted to heroin or that she was dead. And so, but the reason is, if we practice, and that's why I'm a coach, if we practice these things, then we're more likely to be able to survive them and do well under those pressures.
Yeah.
So thankfully I'd kind of done some of that because I still, I gained about 60, 70 pounds. I had lost 150 or something, but then I gained about 60, 70 back because she had texted me the night before she overdosed, and she said, "Hey, can you talk?" And I was just tired, man. I was going to school. I was like, so I didn't text her back. Okay. I didn't text her back. Yeah. And that still kind of sits with me. Like I was a little lazy, I was a little tired, and I wonder if I would have, responded, maybe she wouldn't have done that drug that time, and maybe my son would still have a mother.
Yeah, but I mean, just as well as anybody that that's another one of those things that is completely beyond your control. It's not even something that's your fault. It's just a thing that happened. I mean, yeah. It's a tragedy for sure. But I mean, you do also eventually come to a point where you really, for real, face the reality that there's nothing that you could have done in that moment, and that even if there was, what you did in that moment made sense in that moment. You know what I mean? I mean, you've come around to that, right? Well,
I have, and I guess the only thing I would add to that is that Well, and again, maybe I don't have any degrees, life has been the teacher to me of all this stuff, the impetus behind learning all of it.
Sure.
And it just reminds me, again, that's why I'm practicing right now. That's why I'm like meditating right now. That's why I'm doing yoga. It's why I still focus on these mental health principles. It's why I'm coaching people, because like, again, you got to share it to keep it. And I know like more is coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You're never done.
So I just
there's always more. And it's interesting that you bring this up, because who better to offer some level of knowledge on a topic than someone who's been through something and has a perspective. Like my father was an alcoholic, and he was real good at it. And so when he got sober, he became a substance abuse counselor because he was really good at being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So he knew how to come out the other side of that thing and do something with it. And that's what you're doing here, is that idea of taking all of these experiences and going, you know what, I think I might have something of value to be able to offer people who are going through something similar. Although that said, having heard your story, I can't think of a single person who's gone through something similar. This is a lot. It's, I don't feel like I've been through shit after listening to this.
That's not true. It's
of course it's individual. You can't really quantify emotional experiences, mental health, and the things that you've gone through. And I know that on an intellectual level, I do. What I mean to say in all of this, though, is that you've been through something incredible, for better or worse, and there are a lot of ways that you could have done something with it. There are a lot of forks in your path where you made some decisions, and sometimes those decisions were luck, and sometimes those decisions were bad luck, and sometimes those decisions were exactly what had to happen. But ultimately, you've arrived to the place where you are now as a human being, as a father, as a man, as a person, and the place where you're standing from is a place that you're going to be able to move forward from here. This is your jumping off point for who you're going to show up as for the rest of your life. And everything that came beforehand helped shape it. You wouldn't be the person you are now. You wouldn't be as capable as you are now if you hadn't gone through everything that you've gone through up to this point. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, but you said, I'm grateful. I'm just grateful, man. Like again, obviously I wish
it's a superpower.
It is, dude.
It really is.
Because again, it's not the thought, and I help people with this. I'm telling you, whether it's you're in a sport, you're playing a sporting event, or it's, and again, it's not the same, but it's comparable. Like, someone dies that you care about. When you can be grateful, because if a lot of people, they have mental struggles, and again, I'm not like a psychologist. I don't want to like help people tell you why you're struggling. Sure. I just want to help you fucking win it. I want to help you get out of it. I don't care why you're struggling. Like, let's just move forward. And,
yes,
because it's like that gratitude is an instant thing. I have this thing I work with a lot of people on. And it's, and it's, so if you imagine 3 A's, the letter A, right? 3 A's, like AAA in front of you. And, a lot of people, we start with that first A is anger and anxiety. Okay. And that's like, could be whatever, you're mad. Again, you're mad at the things of your past and the things that have happened, or you're anxious for the future, or whatever it is. We start there. And then if we can get objective, right? If we get objective and we just see it for what it is, again, like, someone died. Okay, now this is hard to do, but again, but on something simple, in a sporting context, you're objective and you say, hey, I missed the shot. Okay?
Yeah.
Because the reason we get objective is then we can accept it. And that's that second. Then we get to acceptance. And that's a healthy thing. Right? And that's, you got to have that to just be healthy. But then if you want that last one, and that's really, and it's a Latin phrase I learned, and it means it's a more fatty. And it's Latin for a love of fate. All right. And if we want to get to that last point, whether it's life or athletics, it takes gratitude. Because if you can be truly grateful, then you cannot be angry and grateful at the same time. You know what I mean? You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Like you can't be anxious and grateful. Like you can't. And so the sooner we can process through that and just get grateful for it. It's like, I'm grateful. I am grateful. Like, obviously I prefer that she didn't pass away. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I'm glad she passed away,
right?
But I'm grateful that she made a fucking sacrifice, man. Like, to go with, like, I'm just, like you said, all those things that you just said that I'm here because of, like, that's a big ass reason is her. And I'm grateful for her for making that sacrifice to even, on so many other levels, like, again, having the kid, when she got the drug addiction, giving me custody of him, and just all of these things, man. Like, and so when I get grateful, I mean, those other things are still there, but I just can't be angry and anxious about them anymore.
Well, I mean, I really honestly can't thank you enough for sharing all of this and for having this conversation with me. And I really, really feel that lesson of gratitude and being grateful for things on a deep, deep level. It's one of the most important things you can do for yourself. And hey, thanks for talking to me today.
Hey, Chris, thanks for you, man. And like I said, I mean, if anybody, can I plug something here? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because again, and it's not for the money. It's like, it's literally, well, you hear this story, but that's why I'm here. Like it's the purpose. Like, what the hell did I go through all of that shit for? If, not to help other people, when they're struggling in life, and to get through that and succeed and you know what I mean? And like, and make something of themselves and get out of that and move past that. So like I said, I got a thing now, and you can check it. It's getcoachfloyd.com. And I have some Instagram stuff, and there's nothing I'm selling really on that right now. I mean, I have some clients, but the biggest thing is just, I like to, again, you have to share it to keep it. So a lot of these things, I try to boil them down into comedic little videos or whatnot. And that way it helps, it's that spoonful of sugar to kind of help the medicine go down, so we can live healthy lives. So, like I said, man, if anybody out there is going through stuff, I think it's important to know that they're not alone, and if they want to reach out to me, I'm more than willing to help them out in any way I can, not charging or anything like that. Just anything I can do, I would really love to help them. So
awesome. And there you have it. Wasn't that inspiring? After everything that this guy has gone through, to come out the other side and still be trying to screw your head on straight and live a good life and make life better for other people, I feel like anybody can do it. I feel like I can do it. I'm inspired. You know what? I think you can do it too. If you want to get some more Floyd in your life, and I know you do, you can find his Coach Floyd Facebook page. On the Facebook, there's a link in the feed below. As for me, I got a lot of things in the works right now, some of which I can talk about, but won't. And I guess most of which I can't talk about right now. But you know what? It's not about me. It's about you. And as always, don't kill yourselves out there.